Next match here is an opposite side of the spectrum. We're fighting for first place potentially in this division here. Eddie and Nalguidan. The seeding has already been determined for 4th place, so that's something that I think Nalguidan can wipe off his brow. Doesn't have to worry too much because having that playoff positioning will be really key. But at least for Eddie and Nalguidan, the story continues for either of them. And with Race dropping here, I'm sure Nalguidan is extra motivated to keep fighting for their region. Race and Nalguidan were practice partners, helping PNC as well. They were kind of a trio, loosely connected by Nalguidan. And I think with a lot of pride comes a lot of sorrow heading into this match.
Yeah, that's right. And getting into it, this is essentially the battle for first seed. Eddie, with a win, he would just have a straight up one more win than anybody else, have an outright first place seed. Nalguidan with a win, he would enact a 3-way tie for first place between Purple, Eddie, and Nalguidan. And with that, Nalguidan currently has a very good tiebreaker 2 score. And in defeating Eddie, he would increase that even more. So there is no permutation if Nalguidan loses that would make him not have a higher tiebreaker 2 score than Purple and Eddie. So he would get first seed despite that 3-way tie.
Yep, let's go into Holy Wrath Paladin versus Quest Druid, a matchup that, I think continues to evolve a little bit. Just when I feel like one side has a good grasp on what it needs to do to, what it feels like guarantee a victory, or at least the conditions that they play to, another wrench gets thrown into it. I think it first started with how much did Druid need to pressure before Paladin combo. Then it turned into what Druid needs to do in the late stage of the game for armor and life count. Then it turned into what Paladin needed to do in the late stage of the game to set up the Tyrion or other things like it to reduce that armor count. And then it became about the Elise timing of how you can copy things like Ferocious Howls and Innervates in order to get out of that range. And so I think I finally land on the point where I feel like Druid, and then Paladin responds by drawing so fast and loading Solid's Pride and a bunch of other stuff to get to the combo faster. So I think I finally land onto the matchup that I think this is even.
It is even. It's fairly even. The one caveat to that is Eddie is only running a single Ferocious Howl in his Druid list, which severely limits his ability to go for the kind of outlive the double combo from the Paladin. That also can allow Nalguidan to be a little bit more fluid with his resources, considering he doesn't have to worry about dealing 50 plus. He just has to worry about, dealing, what is it? 40-something in the grand scheme of things. Just because Eddie only has the ability to go for a certain amount of life gain. Now, it is still a lot, but it means that Eddie has to be a little bit smarter with how he pressures and a little bit smarter with how he budgets his resources once he gets to those Holy Wrath turns.
Yeah, this is not a Ferocious Howl turn, as many Quest Druids are accustomed to do in traditional matchups.
Yeah.
It's about the burst of life at the end, assuming that you aren't dead. And just to kind of talk a little bit more about the evolution of it, Paladin started drawing a lot more aggressively, right? Like loading up their deck with more card draw with Loot Hoarders and Salad Prides. And then Druids responded by changing their deck list a little bit. And then the final point was when Paladin realized that they often have to Holy Wrath with 4 or 5 cards remaining.
Yeah.
And just hope that they are able to get it. And then, we end up seeing the matchups fold out like that. So there's a lot to consider going back and forth. Which makes this matchup, in particular, very interesting. It was even called out by Frozen, I believe, when it was happening, that this is one matchup that he's not sure entirely weeks ago how it went back and forth. I feel like we're a lot closer to solving it, or is it being solved entirely? But it still doesn't mean that there's a lot of decisions to be made back and forth that help influence that. Another thing to consider is whether or not Nalguidan can utilize Prismatic Lens, find a way to discount cards like Holy Wrath or Baleful Banker, and find other ways to squeeze in damage that otherwise aren't possible.
Yeah, it's A lot of maneuvering, especially in the mid game with how you use your resource. You can see right away Nalguidan using True Silver Champion just to get rid of some card draw. In some matchups, that True Silver Champion, every piece of that damage needs to go face, or you don't have the ability to get there in the later stages. Eddie faces a tough decision here. Ancient of War, Keeper of the Grove, Power of the Wild. The silence doesn't have too much effectiveness in this matchup. Ancient of War can be a way for immediate pressure, right? You just play it on 7, it's a 10-10. Your opponent has to have a Subdue or an Equality or a Shrink Ray, or else they're going to be in some trouble. But Power of the Wild seems like the one that's where Nalguidan's going to try and have a turn where he takes a risk and leaves up a board. Power of the Wild could be that ticket to get you a little bit of extra points of damage when Nalguidan needs to take that risk. So out of these, I think I like Power of the Wild the best.
I think I like Keeper of the Grove because I know that they are forced to try to get extra damage to Tyrion or even extra card draw. I just want them to not have it. But, oh, right, and the main reason why is because they don't really ever peg you on Keeper of the Grove. You heard it from Muzzy. He saw Worthy Expedition. He's like, that was like the last card I was expecting.
Yeah.
Almost to the point where it makes me feel like Keeper of the Grove is a legitimate tech card. Let's say you were playing Specialist and you were playing Druid. I feel like Keeper of the Grove would be a legitimate card to include.
It could be, yeah.
Quest Druid.
Because the effect happens in the quote-unquote good order, it could be. But the reason why I don't like it in this position is because if Eddie's faced up against the Tyrion, he likely was in a point where he was in a bad position anyway in the game. He only has the one Ferocious Howl, so out-armoring is not too much of a game plan for him. If he's spending 4 mana to kind of remove just the effect of Tyrion and not the 6/6, I think it's too reactive of a game plan for what his deck needs to do.
It's true. Also, it still doesn't deal with the 6/6 and a 3/2.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think you're right about that.
But Eddie continuing to pressure, and the Ancient of War is going to allow him to do that even more so. And this is kind of why I like the Power of the Wild, because we're in a situation right now where Nalguidan has to leave a board up. He needs to use his turn to draw cards and to empty cards out of his hand. It's too early for him to use big, sweepy board clears. Granted, he didn't even have any. But Power of the Wild would allow him to capitalize in the immediacy and turn this 14 damage into 17 damage, which could be the difference maker.
Well, 19 damage available right now. It's just kind of bonkers how much Druid just randomly threatens almost like more than half your life at any juncture when they just play like a couple of cards.
And then as soon as you get to that threshold where they have like 10 or less cards remaining, Zephrys is all of a sudden on your mind always as well.
Right. In this position, I imagine Eddie would probably want to cash in on more Druid loading. When I say cash in, I mean reveal it from the stealth mode, because there is a True Silver Champion, and there's like, he wants to kind of protect his life total. Also, if Nalguidan has Shrink Ray or other cards, then that stealth doesn't really become that useful. Usually the stealth is really powerful, in particular to try and get spell damage guaranteed, because then your opponent can't really interact with it easily without AoE cards or random removal like Deadly Shot, which is not accessible to Paladin. Ancient of War is honestly just a huge threat. Like, I mean, this is by all means a 2-turn lethal setup. Nalguidan might have to time out as early as next turn. Ooh, Zephrys is active, though.
Yeah, Zephrys is active. That could be a big deal.
Zephrys being active is fairly intriguing because Nalguidan does have Eddie in a position where Betrayal is, like, insane. Oh, Shrink Ray. That's even better. All the threats just been neutralized.
Yep.
That's why you draw first, just in case. This is smart too. If you time out now, your opponent extends onto the board deeper, and then Shrink Ray and Consecration's more mana efficient over turns. The problem is that if he uses Shrink Ray here, one, he's not even clearing the board entirely, and he's not being as mana efficient as he could.
Yeah. Let's say he Shrink Rays right now and doesn't time out, and Eddie follows us up with Scenarios, which he's curving right into. You still take 9 damage, and then all of a sudden Consecration doesn't answer the board because everything's at 3 attack, and you just you didn't waste Shrink Ray because you blocked all that damage, but timeout blocks that damage, and then you get to have a free turn board code next turn. So this sort of makes sense. Nalguidan only 8 cards left remaining. He is kind of running out of draw. You know, he may feel like he's in a position where he has to use the first Holy Wrath. Nalguidan, despite being the king of Shivala being in the bottom 3, does have it in hand, so that is not an option moving forward for him to just kind of rip the first Holy Wrath and try and get that free damage out of the way.
Time waits for no one.
For Eddie, you don't really want to extend too much on this board, because you want to make sure that you have reload for the following turn, since Nalguidan looks like he's setting up for a big board clear. And I mean, you have 24 power on board. Do you really need to add more?
Not really, especially if you can just kill him from the hand effectively. 24 plus swipe is 29. In this position, Nalguidan sort of has options at his disposal. For one thing, there's a very funny opportunity for Nalguidan. When I say funny, it's like something you don't expect. But I always think about Zephyrus generating Van Cleave. And Pyromancer Shrink Ray, Zephyrus Van Cleave is actually a lot of tempo, but the 8/8 gets challenged pretty easily because of the Oasis Surger. If you knew that there was no possibility of Oasis Surger, I think it's something worth considering.
Yeah. He also has the ability to Shrink Ray while Pyromancer Holy Wrath, but the Holy Wrath is a big expenditure. So I think you're kind of okay to just use the Consecration here, push the 2, and try and see what Eddie's reload is going to look like.
Feoris.
Yep.
Only a couple of minions, though. One of them has Taunt, which is good enough.
Okay. While
So-
Pyromancer Consecration is 3 damage, he could use Elven Archer to clean up the 4/4 and the Truce Over Champion swing. Could leave a 5/2 on board. Other than that, the only real removal he has available is a Zephyrus into something. Like a Twisting Nether.
Twisting Nether doesn't seem particularly very good in this spot, but I think you can understand that he wants to just clear everything. Like, if he clears everything, he's not going to die, but by doing this, he also doesn't have as much damage. I guess because of that one Ferocious Howl, right? That gives him the feeling that he can actually just get past it.
Yeah.
Also, Eddie has played Floop, so he actually isn't as helpless against a big board as much as you might think. And he's just trying to get closer to the inevitability of having the Shirvala.
Yeah. Still has no, you subdue. Still has the second timeout in his deck. Still has a quality. No, he used a quality too. What the
Yeah,
heck?
he doesn't have any more board clears.
Yeah, he's just completely out of board
That's the
clears.
only reason why I think I am pretty hesitant about that, because having access to a board clear is like really important. So Eddie can just generate a reasonably sized threat like Oasis Surger, Anubis Top Defender, and then just like challenge Nalguidan to once again clear his board.
His bottom cards consists of Hammer of Wrath, Prismatic Lens, High Priest of Fall, Timeout.
Yeah, Prismatic
Flash
Lens
of Light
number
in there.
2, I think, is really important here. Okay, Blood Mage Thanos, card draw. Consecration deals 4 damage now with Wild Pyromancer.
Yeah.
But if he finds another cheap spell, like Flash of Light number 2, he actually can clear the board.
Do you like to play with fire?
Could even use Elven Archer as a way to try and clear some stuff up. Ooh, High Priest the call.
One shot, one kill.
Using a weapon swing here does decrease his range significantly. He sees 5 cards in the hand, which means that even if he had this True Silver swing, Eddie would gain 6 armor with a single Ferocious Howl, which would put him outside the range of a Holy Wrath and a True Silver swing.
But it would mean with one Ferocious Howl gone, he would have a double Holy Wrath for 2 turns lethal no matter what.
That's true.
Unless some crazy things happen with Elise, but Eddie would have to like preemptively Elise. And it doesn't seem like the ideal scenario. Eddie is running out of pressure though, which is something to note.
Yeah.
If Nalguidan has a turn where he can kind of just, you know, do essentially nothing, right? No board clear, no timeout, no heal. And Eddie can't capitalize on it. That's great for Nalguidan. He only has 4 cards left in deck. One of those cards heals and draws a card with Flash of Light. Prismatic Lens will dig him just to the bottom of his deck.
Yeah, now there's a timeout, so that'll be exactly the turn that he needs to combo, which is a turn from now after that. So 2 turns from now in Eddie's mind.
Time waits
Because
for
he
no
doesn't
one.
have Elise or Zephyr's active, can't really go for an Elise right now with a Ferocious Howl. Playing for tempo.
Yep, just play your stuff. Try and keep Nalguidan as low as possible to make him feel as scared as possible.
Flash of Light. That's important.
Yep.
Hammer of Wrath.
Ooh.
Hammer of Wrath to shut down the armor options because he has 4 cards in hand, meaning he gained 5. Well, it doesn't do it. So maybe he just clears the minion.
I'm almost out of cards.
So now,
Last card is Timeout, so he can reasonably just play the High Priest the call here, combo next turn, play a Timeout, combo the turn after, 50 damage over 2 turns, and the onus is on Eddie to
have it.
to heal out of range of it, which just doesn't seem possible at this point. With how little cards he has in hand, Ferocious Howl is just not as much value as he'd need.
Still not active Elise, though.
Yeah, and outside of that, his hand is like dead.
Yeah, the Nourish kind of tantalizing Eddie at this point.
Yeah, so he does have the potential for an Innervate draw.
Well, yeah, if he actually Ferocious Howls into the Nourish.
Or Ferocious Howls into...
Well, hold on. No, he doesn't have Zephyr's active. It's like Druid of the Claw. Plus, or Mark of Nature plus something.
So if
Oh
he
my goodness.
if he picks up another Innervate, he could... Oh, he could Hidden Oasis, Innervate, Hidden Oasis.
Well, if his Zephyr's was active, he actually had lethal, I believe. Because his Mark of Nature would have given +4, and then Zephyr's could give him Wind Fury, and he would have had lethal.
Oh, yeah.
What a way that would have ended the game, by
Jeez,
the way.
I know.
Zephyr's not being active really hurts, to say the least. And now I think double Innervate with the double Hidden Oasis.
I'm out of cards.
Uh-oh. I think Eddie lagged and missed an attack.
Yep.
Well,
It's time to test your metal.
I don't think it's going to matter.
yes, because one of the things to consider is that, yes, Eddie can heal, but what about the board presence of the Shrivala?
Stash that away.
Well, he'll have 2 taunts in the way.
I'm
Right, but there's still 2 Shrivalas that come out.
Yeah, there's still two Shrivalas. I mean, there's
So
there's a chance.
I don't think so. Because you Shrivala, Baleful Banker, Holy Wrath, and then the 2 Shrivalas get past the 6/6, and then you just hit for 7.
Well, he's got another Starfall in his deck.
So the play is the Hidden Oasis twice, right?
You have to. You have to Hidden Oasis.
And then Nalguidan plays Shrivala, Baleful Banker, Holy Wrath, deals 25, and then draws the other Shrivala, plays 2 Shrivalas, kills the 2 6/6s, and then just hits for 10 extra.
Oh, yeah.
So he hits for 35 this turn. I think Eddie's dead.
Yeah.
Like, even if he got that 3 attack in last turn, I think you're right, it didn't matter.
Yeah. Because he healed up anyway, all the
Yes.
way up to 21. Once you get to this point, your only way to win is to run the Paladin out of stuff, like to kill their whole board.
Yes.
Because then they can't win, and you're not deep enough into fatigue where that matters, usually.
Yeah, I think Eddie knows that the double Hidden Oasis path is guaranteed defeat.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's a way for Zephyrus to really swing this. You can certainly hope that Eddie Nalguidan messes up. I think that's his best course of action. With a big deep breath, Nalguidan's got that first game on lock, assuming he doesn't mess it up.
It's time to test your metal.
Should be good to go, though.
Stash that away.
Dope misclick. Imagine you accidentally hit the 6/6.
When I'm trying to make fast trades, sometimes I'll try and go face, and then I'll let go of my mouse too quickly, and I'll hit a minion.
Yeah.
But when you're in this position, I don't know, it's been a long time since we've seen a misclick in Grandmasters.
And you mean like a couple weeks ago?
That's a long time. For us, that is.
Fair enough. Nalguidan gets the first win in the Paladin versus Druid. Very tightly contested both ways, but Eddie's deck building perhaps being a reason for why that ended up going the Paladin way, because he doesn't have access to the double Ferocious Style, therefore he has to pressure more, or he had to have drawn the activators for Elise and Zephyrus much earlier.
Yeah, you know, there's a world where if you know you have double Ferocious Howl to fall back on, you keep your hand high. If you don't pressure early, you just stop trying to, not stop trying to pressure, but you stop trying to go all in on pressure like he did with Floop and with things like that, and you just try and draw as much as possible, keep your hand size high, and go for that, outlast your opponent. But unable to do it this time around, and with that, now we're down 1-0.
All right, so we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to have Nalguidan and Eddie continue their best of 3 for first place.
The shadows are rising again, darker than they've ever been. As evil descends from the skies, the world cries out, how will we survive? Out of the hall of explorers, and up from the dusty tombs, they grab their whips and fedoras. These legends of the past know exactly what to do. There might be magic monsters, mummies in the markets, and ancient mysticism. There's surely scorching deserts, adventure, monster of narcissism. High stakes think annihilation, obliteration of civilization. Now is the time to be brave. Evil's come to enslave, but this league's gonna save the world.
I'm Facundo Pruso, more known as Nalguidan. My username is an Illidan reference. I used to play Warcraft 3 a lot. Illidan is my favorite character. Back in the days, I really liked watching RDU stream as well. After I saw him for the first time on some DreamHack tournament, and then I got to beat him on some online tournament finals. That was my first tournament win, my first prize win. That was a very key moment for me in Hearthstone. I think I'm pretty good at recognizing what decks are good and how to improve them. I like the Su playstyle. Some people think it's like broke back deck, but then you have a lot of things to master, and there is a lot of little things in that deck that Of course, you can draw 1, 2, 3, 4 and kill an opponent, but that's not gonna happen every game, and you need to know how to improve your odds. I don't know if other players already respect me or not. In my region, I think they do. I'm not sure about the other Grandmasters. This year, I really want to qualify for Global Finals. I quite didn't make it last year, so that's the main goal. I hear a lot of players say first season wasn't that important, but I think it really is. If you win the first season, you made it to Global Finals.
My name is Eddie Liu, formerly Sehun628. Now it's just Eddie playing. My last year I had a pretty successful year, especially since I only played this game for 2 years. I won DreamHack Atlanta. It's only a tour stall, but it meant a lot to me, especially since I was grinding really, really hard for a win. When I first knew that, I received the email that I got into Grandmaster, I was really excited. I checked my email at 10:30, and I was hyped. I was like, oh my god, is this actually real? I think I'm a very consistent player. I think the X factor for myself is that I hate playing aggro decks, I would say. I'm a very control/anti-control player. I rather outgrind my opponent in resources. I constantly judge myself, oh, is this right? Is what I'm doing correct? And it means a lot. It means a lot to me that if other people are agreeing what I do and what I think. At this point, I just want to make Worlds. I had a pretty good record in Tour Stop. I think I was at least top 10, if not top 5. I think I was lucky. I think this group is the easier group, and I think I have a good chance getting out of groups.
Nalguidan versus Eddie continues as we are going to a Druid versus Druid. We know that Eddie is on the Quest Druid, but Nalguidan's on the Malygos Druid. This matchup is can be pretty tough sometimes if there's a lot of pressure going the other way against Malygos Druid. But I like playing Malygos Druid from this perspective only because I think it's really fun to get these really satisfying swipes on a bunch of minions for 6+ damage each. And I love doing that as a final blow, but it can be pretty tough if your opponent's just barreling down with, a bunch of big stats and scenarios and you can't really deal with it. So we'll see if Nalguidan's able to do this.
Yeah, it's you spend your turns in the later stages of the game trying to get your combo ready, while the standard Quest Druid spends their turns in the later stages of the game making giant boards of big minions that want to kill you.
Nature must be
So usually that's a
preserved.
mismatch, but we've seen this matchup go both ways, even just in the past few weeks, even just yesterday, with the full combo able to be unleashed by Bloody Face in this very matchup. So we'll see. Wow. Both players starting with the Quest. We're off to a good start.
They're so lucky every time.
I know.
I do think that...
Don't even talk about mulligan away the Quest, Dan.
Oh, no.
Okay. Whew.
I was going to say,
You scared me.
I do think that I actually end up looking at players' leftmost card a lot of times, thinking if they're playing Shaman, do they keep the leftmost card in their hand? Because on ladder, there's actually a handful of Murloc Shamans or aggro Shamans out there that really mess me up because I mulligan for Quest Shaman sometimes.
Yeah.
And when I mulligan for Quest Shaman, I'm like, I'm trying to keep things against Evil Totems. No, Tidecaller and Underbelly. I'm like, well, I can't kill both of them because I only have one Wrath.
Behold,
And I just die.
jewels of the
Well, Dan,
sound.
I'll let you in on a little trick.
What's up?
If you're playing aggro Shaman on ladder, just always keep the far left card in your mulligan. Then on turn 1, everybody thinks you're Quest Shaman.
Ooh. Well, it doesn't change anything for Drew. They still play Quest turn 1.
They still play Quest turn 1, but then they think
For half a second.
for half a
Can
second.
mix them up.
Mixes them up. They're like, maybe I don't play Quest on 1. Maybe I coin out this Crystal Merchant to have something on board.
The drunken druid martial art.
Well, good start for Nalguidan. He has Crystal Merchant, and Eddie does not. And a real meaningful way to kill it outside of swipe next turn. But that would require an Innervate expenditure if Eddie didn't want to give up some quest progress. So, liking what I see from Nalguidan so far. Just missing a, oh, look at that, a Nourish.
Ooh.
Really good stuff, actually. Nourish being really important for Druid and Mirrors. I mean, Nourish is just generally really important in any matchup that's a little bit slow in the beginning.
Yeah.
But it ends up becoming super valuable because it allows the Malygos Druid to have more removal options for the inevitable pressure that's coming their way. So, you know, in a situation where both players have Nourishes, I'd argue that Malygos Druid starts to even up a little bit more in the matchup, even though they traditionally tend to get pressured out. And there hits a tipping point where there's just not enough that the Quest Druid can do against Malygos Druid, and then Malygos Druid runs away with the game. He's just so much deeper into his deck.
3 cards drawn. Means he's more likely to hit the Nourish, which means he can kind of craft his hand in a way where he's just going to have answers to everything that Eddie does. And Eddie's hand's not the greatest himself. He has Worthy Expedition that can find him some big tools. War Druid Lodi kind of just sticking on the board. Make sure your removal's easier. You can use those to protect the minions that you have on board. But, I mean, when you're faced with this kind of situation from Nalguidan where you just have everything, and it's only a matter of, how do I just dump cards from my hand?
Yeah, in a very weird way, drew too many cards from Crystal Merchant.
Yeah.
So that way he couldn't like nourish an Anubisat Defender in this turn, but it's okay. He's just clearing the board, doesn't want to take too much damage. Force Eddie to once again present the threats. And it's not going to be very big.
Of the sound. Power.
Nope.
Like, this is sure intimidating, but nothing he can't manage.
You can tell by Eddie's body language that he's not happy with how this game is progressing at the moment.
Yeah, Oasis Searcher here as well. So, I was talking about Nourish, but a lot of times you just don't want to fall too far behind a board. Ooh, now that's a big pickup for Eddie.
Oh, yeah.
But, I mean, the Nourish allows Nalguidan to start feeling like he can go for plays too.
At the moment, Nalguidan just wants something to be able to Starfall. Starfall is the card that he wants to get out of his hand, because that allows him also to dump a Anubisat Defender.
Sure.
He needs to be able to find a turn where he can Nourish. Because right now, his hand's just too full.
Sure. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that Nalguidan has first world problems.
Yes.
Which is, normally, he's under too much pressure to get Nourish out of his hand. He has to decide, do I Nourish and just try to barely survive and get, like, Wrath off the top? Or do I just, like, respond right now to his threats and I have to hope that he doesn't have follow-up ones? So you can have follow-up threats. Eddie has Ancient of War. That's a card that's hard for Drew to deal with, to say the least. Super hard.
Yeah. Outside of, like, War Druid Lodi.
Yeah. He also has the option of going Tending Torn, which I don't think is that bad.
Yeah, it's a way to capitalize on a board.
Yeah. He also has Forbidden's Flute, so Tending Torn, Forbidden's Flute can work pretty well. And there's the Starfall opportunity that you mentioned. Funnily enough, Nalguidan could Nourish and Starfall and play a Anubisat Defender and burn 2 cards. And if he burns something very important like a Dream Petal Florist, his life becomes miserable.
Yes. Because pretty much if you're having to spend a lot of, cards to remove and you're kind of on the edge of death at the very end when you combo, if you lose any piece...
I actually wonder if it's better for Nalguidan to just like Hidden Oasis and like play that instead, because it is a little bit of a hard card to expend, right? And then Hidden Oasis, like the thing that I'm worried about is King Feoris, right? So I want to like have Starfalls ready for that. I guess by playing Oasis Searcher, it's just more tempo, so it's better versus the Feoris.
Well, Feoris picked up, but there are 2 4-mana spells, 2 0-mana spells, and a 1-mana spell. He could turn the Worthy Expedition into something expensive and go Worthy Expedition, maybe find Hidden Oasis or Nourish, and then Innervate out King Feoris. But then
Yeah.
you're still looking at 2 4-drops in a 6-drop when you're not dealing with this board of 2 5/5. So it's likely that now you're going to be able to clean things up quite easily.
You can also get Wrath, so you get Worthy Expedition, Wrath, Ancient of War. That's hard to deal with for Nalguidan.
Yeah, and it would draw you deeper into your deck. And honestly, Eddie needs that because he has to find some creative ways to pressure the late game with Zephyrus and at least Light.
Double Ancient
Or
of War.
this!
I mean, this also gains +5/+5. It's a heck of a turn for 10 mana. So Starfall, does it deal with everything?
Starfall leaves a... You'd have to use an Innervate. But Innervate Starfall would still leave the 10/10 Ancient of War at 1 health, but it would kill the 9.
I'll make you a real toy.
1/1 defender. Yeah, I actually really like this from Nalguidan because well, one, he gets a card that's a little bit hard to use in the Geppetto Joy Buzz out of the way to pull the minions, but also still saving the Starfalls for King Feoris or a Cenarius. Wow, that 1/1's actually quite annoying.
It is very annoying.
Or the Expedition.
Whew.
Interesting.
I think we can rule out Druid of the Scythe. War Druid Lodi and Wrath both fit some very unique roles. Wrath is if Eddie just is unhappy with how his hand looks right now and wants to cycle a little bit deeper. Lodi with double swipe in hand could have some merit for trying to clean things up on the board, but I mean, you've seen Oasis Surgers, you've seen Geppetto. It's like, what kind of big board is your opponent going to deal that a swipe is going to be super necessary for you to try and come back? I think it's all about trying to be as proactive as possible, and I think that's about finding better stuff.
Thunder was on the defender, just tanked 10 damage. Definitely did its job.
All right, so now Double Starfall is a full clear, but you have to trade in Geppetto.
Can you use a... Yeah, you're right. I was trying to think about utilizing Bloodmage Thanos, but it
Does not have an Innervate left, and I think the second Innervate wants to be saved for the...
For the Floop?
For the Florist Innervate Floop for the guaranteed double combo. The Starfall would be 6 and 3. It just doesn't line up super well. Because if he goes 6 and 3, yes, he kills the Cenarius, but everything else at 1 health. I think just the double Starfall trade Geppetto is probably just the cleanest way to do it. He could expend a Moonfire and keep his Geppetto alive.
What if you Thanos, Starfall, and then trade, just like make sure you kill off the Ancient of War, and, or I guess in this case the Cenarius, and then play like Crystal Merchant. Just like let your opponent deal damage. You're at 44. I like this.
Behold,
Okay.
the jewels of the sound.
Does make you a little bit vulnerable to Mind Control Tech, but be like that. Mind Control Tech stealing Bloodmage Thanos, I think, would be devastating.
Engaging
Actually,
TC-130 into dislocation.
it's also bad.
I mean, the taunt lets him push damage.
A lot of damage right now. Power of the Wild looks really good. Power of the Wild, Wrath, Swipe. I mean, you can play all of them. They all look really good in this spot.
Some of this also depends on how much Eddie wants to respect the Crystal Merchant. It looks like not at all. Or, I mean, fully. Another Wrath.
Yeah, I definitely want to stack the board. I think Wrath does have a good chance of drawing into a 6-mana spell like Hidden Oasis and whatnot to make Feoris better.
Yeah.
Kind of also just want to Power the Wild. Just +2 damage. Respect to the Thanos, so that Starfall number 2 doesn't just wipe him.
Yeah, protects his Ancient of War. Like if he lets that Blood Mage Thanos live, all of a sudden the Starfall kills both.
Just for reference, that's the flooped Ancient of War. It got +3/+4, then it got rooted, or then it got buffed.
Rooted and uprooted.
Rooted and uprooted, and then it got Scenarios buffed, and then it got Power of the Wild buffed. This Ancient of War has seen some stuff, TJ.
Yeah.
Seen some tough times.
It's funny, you know, there's that effect where you mouse over the cards and see their buffs, and every buff in the game has a unique name.
Right.
The buff from Forbiddenness Floop is Floopy.
It's a transformation.
Yeah, the 3/4 being transformed
It's
is
a floopy, rooted, uprooted, demigod's favor, leader of the pack. That sounds like a really epic way to introduce him. Game of Thrones style.
Time waits for no one.
The Ancient of War, the floopy, the rooted, the uprooted, demigod's favor, the leader of the pack. Now you're not stuck on a situation where he actually has to deal with his board, or else he's going to be in trouble. Starfall. Oh! That was the one card you didn't want to burn.
And now this game plan for Medi becomes much simpler.
Well, he's got 19 damage, plus 2 swipes is 27. Wait, he has Elise. Can he just Elise? Oh no, he has Hidden Oasis. I was like Elise with like a bunch of swipes and 2 innervates, but
yeah, I might even just like Hidden Oasis here, the Ancient of War, just to keep it alive. You've seen both Starfalls.
Yeah.
A 6/6 and then what is it right now? An 11/10?
I don't know.
No, an 11/12. It's 11/12 max health.
Right, because it's got that's actually a fun quiz, right?
Yeah.
It's because it was in 8/9.
It was an 8/9, and then it got
+2, then +1.
Need a hand,
So you're right.
Explorer?
Yeah.
Time waits for no one.
Innervate, Hidden Oasis.
Yep. And Elise here, like, just as valuable being an extra 5/5.
I mean, you start to see why this matchup's tough anyways, right? Because even if Nalguidan had floors, there's no way he could play floors in this spot.
Yeah, keep in mind, last turn, despite having that nourish on 6, he never had hand space to cast nourish because of how many cards he drew with Crystal Merchant.
Right.
So the first time he nourished was on like turn 11.
Yeah.
Despite
I was
having
like
it right away when the quest completed.
hyping up. I was like, oh, he has Nourish. It's like really important for him. But he didn't have hand space for it.
Yeah.
And I don't know. Maybe is there some weird world where he's supposed to Nourish and just accept the risk and then use that crystals to bounce back? Because he had a second Nourish eventually.
It would have given him more mana crystals. He could have dumped an Innervate early on in the game and then nourished and dumped the Anubis Defender. He would have overdrawn 1 card. Right. There was also a turn where he could have Starfalled and dump a Nubisat Defender, then rolled into the Nourish next turn. Eddie having a slower start honestly worked out for him because it forced Nalguidan to play things from his hand that didn't really empty his hand.
Right,
they just replaced themselves. And
we've seen players Starfall their own minions to try to dump their hand before.
yeah, I mean,
I feel like sometimes you got to do that.
in some matchups it works out because if you Starfall your own minion once the quest is complete, you'll kill your minion. You'll still deal 2 damage to all enemy minions, since the first effect can target any minion, where the second effect is only enemy minions. So you can like clear a board and make board space to dump Starfall out, which we saw it once yesterday or the day before. We saw it once this weekend, and we saw it once last week to make board space for King Feoris. So it's kind of an interesting interaction that you can use. Feel free to wield it at home.
Sure. It's definitely a nice little trick in order to free up your hand space, which is if you know the matchup's slow enough and your opponent's like, Starfall isn't like the key to your victory. It's just helping you stay alive. Perhaps, like, I think what Eddie did a really good job was navigating around the 2 Starfalls, but like, when you're playing at a level like this and you anticipate your opponent to do that, that's when maybe you dump it. But then if he dumps it, then his opponent just plays like Snares and he's like dead. So
yeah.
It's a tough situation, right? It's not exactly like clean cut. I personally liked originally how things were going for Nalguidan, but in retrospect, I'm like, I guess like Well, one, he definitely had too much of a hand size issue, and I think now we committed to it too late when it was already not impactful whatsoever. And then two was that he did such a good job pressuring with the tools that he got. Let's go into game number 3. We have Control Warrior up here, and I think that's Nalguidan trying to get ahead of whatever it could be played, which is Priest. Priest is on board for Eddie, but he also has the availability of OTK Paladin. And it looks like he went for the Holy Wrath, which makes sense because with Control Warrior looming, it seems like Priest is a liability this series.
Yeah. I really like Eddie's Holy Wrath Paladin in this matchup just because it cycles faster. He has the double Load Hoarder, the Solid's Pride. He does cut some tools that can help him, like he cuts a Prismatic Lens, he cuts a Consecration. And
will fight with
that can sometimes be a big deal if you need to go for like the second Prismatic Lens to discount both Holy Wraths, which can give you an edge, but his list is just a much more consistent way to move through the curve, where it seems like he always has an option to draw cards. And he always has an option to empty his hand because of how cheap, on average, his deck list is, with more than half his deck being 2 mana or less. Actually, much more. Let me count. 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 out of his 30 cards are 2 mana or less.
Jeez. How many of them draw cards?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 out of the 18 of 2 or less, and then 12, 13, 14, 15 of his total deck. So half of his cards in his deck draw some amount of cards.
Fast start from Eddie. I like this Coin Pyromancer a lot. I think it's good to just get the armor count checked, but also because if he plans on utilizing things like Coin, it just destroys his own board. So really good recognition here from Eddie, just to have that small possibility that it sticks, right? There's always a chance that Nalguidan just throws a 2/2 in the way and then all of a sudden stops, but whenever you're right about it, the payoff is amazing.
And I think Nalguidan, realizing with how fast Eddie's start is and just how Eddie's deck list is built, that his ability to go for that burst of armor in the later stages of the game is just not there. Secondly, Nalguidan has 2 Hecklebots in his Control Warrior list, which if he finds those Hecklebots, it has a lot of good hits in the deck. It has Shrivala, obviously.
Oh my goodness.
And also Baleful Bankers. If you get rid of a Baleful Banker, their ability to go for the double Holy Wrath is minimized. See, it just
is silly. Just
every turn
so
he just
many
draws cards.
And Nalguidan's like gonna try to draw cards, but
Speak to me.
see, if Eddie shuts down this card draw, he shuts down the possibility of whether or not Nalguidan can get the Hecklebot in time.
Yeah.
I wonder if, because of the threat of Hecklebot, in this matchup you're supposed to keep Shrivala in your opening hand. Probably not, right? But it's just
probably not.
It's just like one of those things that's like, it's just so bad if it does end up hitting.
Yeah, but you can just hope that, because they're likely, I don't know if they're going to keep Hecklebot. I don't know.
You don't keep Hecklebot?
There was one situation, it was last week, where it was Holy Wrath Paladin versus Warrior. I can't remember who it was. They did not keep Hecklebot.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Blessing of wisdom.
And I mentioned it, I was like, huh, that seems weird.
Interesting that Eddie, I guess he went for the mana efficient play, but like he didn't have that guarantee of it before the Blessing of Wisdom draw. That does intrigue me somewhat. He could. I was thinking about Hammer of Wrath that turn.
No tomb can hold me.
I think. I mean, it ended up working out pretty well because Eddie ended up having. He's playing so fast; it's like hard to kind of keep up with the
Yeah.
It ended up working out okay because Eddie was mana efficient and he ended up drawing a little bit more cards. But Hammer of Wrath also did draw a card, and it also dealt with the Acolyte pretty efficiently. The subdue was a nice touch, though, because obviously Nalguidan couldn't draw cards, but one thing that people like to do with the Acolyte is to follow up with a Dynamatic.
Yep. And he didn't want to use True Silver Champion. One, it would have played off curve. And two, you usually need the True Silver Champion damage to go face. It just opens up a lot of options. It puts the warrior into pressure. It gets rid of their ability to go for the armor up path.
Yeah. I mean, Eddie does have Elven Archer in his deck, right?
He does have Elven Archer in his deck.
So that was another opportunity you could have drawn with the Nalguidan.
No tomb can hold me.
Weapons Project right on time to be able to get rid of this True Silver Champion. It is the only one for Eddie. But the thing about it is it just the 4 damage heal kind of because he doesn't have the Harrison Jones to follow up. Which means that Eddie will make up for that 6 armor gain over the next 3 turns.
Prismatic Lens. Discounts the Loot Hoarder. Perfect mana expenditure here for the Loot Hoarder as well.
Yeah.
Now, the thing about the Weapons Project is that it still doesn't eliminate the fact that there's 6 damage to offset that armor. It's a burst of armor that Nalguidan has. And so the True Silver Champion removal is only partial, right? Like, usually they try to pair it with Harrison Jones to try to make it a complete reversal.
Yep.
That Attorney Rover, potentially really big for Nalguidan to help use with Warpath.
Defend the gates!
Yeah, problem for Nalguidan is he's got a long way to go before he's able to get to that 50+ mark.
Yeah. He's at 34 right now with 40 from the Attorney Rover 3 times, and it's just going to get chopped down every single turn now. Flash of Light. Help draw more cards. It's turn 8, and Eddie's within striking distance of the bottom 5 cards of his deck.
Yep, and that also means that with the Baleful Beggar Chevalier on that turn, Hecklebot no longer online for anything impactful. He also has both Holy Wrath, so Nalguidan's ability to, say, pull out Salat's Pride and potentially overdraw Eddie for one of his big tools, not there as well. Eddie has every combo piece in hand already, so Nalguidan, from his perspective, still seemingly has hope. But right now it's not looking good for him because he hasn't been able to amass any type of armor total whatsoever. I think his game plan could be pressure. I mean,
at one point, do you just say, I need an Archivist Elysiana?
yeah, I was thinking that. It's too early right now because I think Nalguidan has like 1 or 2 more turns to maybe try and Hecklebot.
Right. Like, at what point is it you hit that threshold where it's just like, I might need Archivist Elysiana to give me something absolutely ridiculous, like a wild blood... No, you can't get that, right? You can
Unseen
get
Saboteur.
Unseen Saboteur, or you can get...
Spellword Jeweler.
Decoy.
Blatant Decoy. Spellword Jeweler.
Nalguidan. Oh, okay, never mind. Thought Nalguidan played Banish. Like, we Hall of Famed that card a long time ago. 2 Morden, armor up. Just because it's impractical for him to get to the 50 life total doesn't mean he should try. With Subdue and Shrink Ray being used, if he can force on Equality, Eternium Rover with Snip Snap could be something that helps Nalguidan get out of at least that immediate burst range. Eddie has how many cards left with the Crystology to draw?
1. It's just the Elven Archer, I believe. He does not play an Acolyte of Pain in the deck.
Doesn't need to.
Doesn't need to. Yeah, he's got so much card draw as it is. So yeah, Elven Archer. That's why he can feel free to do this with 9 cards in hand after Crystology, because he knows he's only going to draw 1 card. And we're starting to get to that point. Not many cards left after that Elven Archer is picked up. We're looking at a Salat's Pride in the bottom part of his deck. We're looking at a Zephyrus still in the bottom part of his deck. Still has a Flash of Light.
Reporting for duty.
Yes, get him for one.
Nice.
That might matter. Nalguidan doesn't have any rushes to pull, I think, with Restless Mummy and Militia Commander and Ziliak's
Yeah.
command.
He plays an extra rusher with Militia Commander to try and combat Priest. And even with that, with 14 cards left in deck, he's already drawn all of his rushers. And still no Hekabot. And now it's about that time where...
Elysiana.
At this point, how else can you hope to win with your opponent having both timeouts and a quality still left? I think that if you're going to go for Elysiana, it was that turn. Maybe you can use it into a timeout turn. That could be relevant, but unfortunately, Nalguidan just feels like he doesn't have enough pressure to get to that timeout turn.
Yeah.
He still has Weapons Project and Shield Block, so he can chain those along with Ziliak's.
It's true.
Last three cards are Flash of Light, Solid's Pride, and Zephyrus.
Let me think.
No card draw available to Eddie, so this looks like some kind of removal turn. Trying to think how many resources he can expend and try and time out what his burst windows look like.
Yeah, ideally he wants to save the timeouts for when he actually commits to the Holy Wrath lines.
Yep.
It's dumping Consecration. As long as he has Pyromancer, quality is still active.
Yeah.
Slow down here from Eddie. Everything's been lightning speed up until this final hurdle. Did he actually increase the power on board with that Consecration? I think he did.
By 1. So not the biggest of deals, but I mean, he's at 22. There's 11 damage showing.
Interesting this time.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, 11 showing is half his life total. It's not that he's afraid of dying, it's that he just wants to not take that damage so he doesn't have to worry about it later, and most likely next turn he's going to commit to an equality play.
Yeah.
Another Town Crier!
All right, so I said the timeout turn is probably the trigger for Archivist Elysiana. Even if Nalguidan's next 2 draws are like exactly Shield Block into Weapons Project, that's 11. Ziliak's, even if you put it onto a 2 more, then that's 6 more. That's 17. And turning him over, you put it on the board to turn before. That's 19, and Armor Up is 21.
Nope. It's 49.
That's 49. That's not enough. Assuming you have 1 more turn of Armor Up, maybe you can do it.
Well, now this just sets up Eddie for success, right? Equality, Wild Pyromancer, Flash of Light.
And then he starts the combo next turn.
With Zephyrus also as a
With
possibility.
Zephyrus still in the bottom. So Nalguidan has to play around the ultimate damage combo with Zephyrus Soulfire at the very end. And even if Eddie doesn't get there with that, he could use the Zephyrus the turn that he goes for the second combo. And after the Holy Wrath damage is dealt, and Nalguidan's below 10 health, and just get Pyroblast. And then it's kind of a checkmate situation because Nalguidan has to spend an entire turn removing a board full of Shrivalas. And then Eddie has a Pyroblast in his back pocket to get there.
Yeah, seems like Eddie's pretty much cornered Nalguidan. And again, Archivist Elysiana, very unlikely to do anything.
Yes, very unlikely. It's more likely than it was before the Discover changes.
Because now you have more neutrals and disruption.
Now you have more disruption neutrals.
Reporting for duty.
Hecklebot has 1 card left. If he pulled Zephyrs, it would have been pretty funny.
Yeah, if he pulled Zephyrus, it would have been pretty funny. But unfortunately for him, like I mentioned the ideal scenario, and that's if Nalguidan top deck the perfect cards. And it's Solid's Pride.
He's like, aw, it's nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it was wishful thinking.
Yeah.
Very amusing, but obviously not enough. Oh, Nalguidan knows he's pretty dead. Pretty dead. But the Ziliak's Eternium Rover, like Ziliak's is nice to have a mech stick, so you can have Eternium Rover, Warpath, Armor Up. then Ziliax helps you gain back a little bit of that life. If he gets shield block into Weapons Project into Ziliax, that's 5 plus 6 is 11. Plus 6, 17. He's at 36, 53. Ah! It would be close, but he needs exactly that card combination.
Exactly.
Exactly that card combination.
And even then,
Oh wait, I forgot the Hecklebot died. Never mind.
Oh yeah, Hecklebot dies.
I was like, if you can stick Ziliax onto the Hecklebot.
Yeah. His Hecklebots, the 2 turns where Eddie runs out of cards, the Hecklebots show up.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that does it, right?
Yep.
Ziliax
Face me, you egomaniacal Alec.
gain 6.
Unity. Precision.
Not enough. Gain 8 to the attack of the armor, just barely out of range. And Eddie, with this victory, is going to secure first place in his division with a 10-4 score.
It's time.
Yeah. Nalguidan had not seen the second swapped spell and hadn't seen. I guess he did see Shirval at that point. Maybe hoping that like the second swapped spell was the Holy Wrath with Shirvala. Because Shirvala would have been 0 anyway. So that's why you stay in that game, just because the off chance that the second Holy Wrath costs 25.
That's right. So Eddie ends Division A on top. In Season 1, he was 9-5. In Season 2, he is 10-4. Remarkable consistency out of our Lazarus Gaming player. Really well done by Eddie. And I think over the course of these 2 seasons, I think people have seen why he is considered to be a top player in the Americas region. He's ready for an interview, so let's go ahead and check in with Eddie, the victor of that series and #1 seed going to playoffs. Eddie, can you hear us?
Yeah, how are you guys doing?
Doing okay, doing okay. So how do you feel locking into #1 seed, being able to be consistent? I mean, you went 9-5, then 10-4. That's pretty impressive. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I guess it's pretty good. Sorry, I was still after I saw Ray's loss, I kind of got I don't know. Before the match, I knew like I was pretty excited for my own match, right? Because I'm playing for first place. But then, because my match before me was Ray's and Zalay, and I couldn't see it until I couldn't know the result, and it kind of affected me like after I knew Ray's loss. Yeah, so.
Got it. Can you speak a little bit more about that? Are you close friends with Race?
Yeah, I treat Raze as one of my best friends in Hearthstone, like in the Hearthstone community, because he's really nice to me. When I first met him in Copa America, the first one, where he won first place and I made top 8, but whatever. He's just a really nice guy, and we always talk about lineups, and it really sucks to see him go. Of course, like Zalay won the match, and Zalay is definitely a good player, so it's just kind of harsh to see that, like. When yeah, and so yeah. Before this match, I was pretty excited. I guess Nalguidan. I don't want to go to Nalguidan like I did against Muzzy, and also like since TJ's leaving, I want to like have a final talk with TJ as well. So it was kind of like I didn't want to win, but I was really nervous because race game, and at the end I think I played pretty well the whole series. I didn't make much mistakes. Game 1, I didn't have Nourish. With my plan to have double Howl, with at least copying it. So, I think overall I played decently. It wasn't like a throw like against Muzzy, but yeah.
I'll stop talking. TJ, go ahead.
Well, I think, Eddie, the ultimate parting gift you can give to me is throwing in some Eddie techs next week, because you had one of the things I appreciated most about your play this season was you always found something to add to the staples of the metagame. The Faces Rager in the Priest, the Solid's Pride in the Paladin deck, And I'm sure there's something in those 23 wild cards that are being added next week for playoffs.
I thought he was playing Blatant Decoy for a while, wasn't he?
Did you play the Blatant Decoy in Warrior 2?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Some spicy stuff.
Another Eddie tech. So I'll be looking forward. I'll be watching. I'll be trying to watch at the end of this week. So I'm hoping to see some nice Eddie deck building come at me for the playoffs. So you have to promise me at least you'll try.
I'll try to bring something spicy for sure.
Sweet.
Well, Eddie, I mean, you ended the season on top of your division. A lot of people don't actually talk much about Lazarus Gaming, but you and Bloodyface definitely holding it down. Is there anything you'd like to say to wrap up your season here after another great 7 weeks of performance here?
I definitely wanted to give thanks to my practice partners, Raze, ETC, and Monsanto. And sometimes I work with Bloodyface. The week I brought the tech card in Warrior, the card, was he kind of sent just randomly, like we talked a little bit, and he sent me a Warrior deck list, and I was like, this looks kind of like what I want to play, and then I just take out some of the cards I don't like, and then I put in some of the cards I like, and I'm like, maybe I could put this against Paladin and Malygos Druid. So it makes my opponents way more harder to play, and sometimes they'll kind of misplay, and you get some percentage by having 1 or 2 tech cards. And yeah, it was pretty good. And yeah, thank you for the casters. Everyone's like did a good job, and thank you for my team. Yeah, that's kind of it for now. But
all right, well, congratulations, another great season, and we'll see you back for playoffs, Eddie.
Thank you.
Tough day. Our last match is